Hi, okay, so this is the last lesson on the Skills Builder box, and I just want to show you how to add a felt layer into the bottom for like a liner, and this will finish off the inside. So the first thing you need to do is take a steel ruler. Great thing about these is you've got all the millimeters and they go right up to the edge, so you can get a really accurate measurement. It's actually got 0.5 millimeters if you look very closely, and if I can get this to focus, so you can see there's actually 0.5 millimeter spaces on here which are different from the other side. So if you're a real designer in the future, try and develop your accuracy and precision so you're actually using 0.5 millimeter spacing on your measurements, which will make sure everything is really nice and snug fit. So anyway, back to the box. You can see here, if I put my ruler, actually I'm going to measure sort of this side first. So I put my ruler here to measure the interior space. It's exactly 61 millimeters. Okay, and then measuring the other dimension, I need to make sure my ruler doesn't go into that slot. It looks pretty much bang on 180 millimeters. Now, because my ruler is actually at a slight angle, it means it's not getting the measurement exactly right. So what I could do is take that 180 millimeters and just add 1 millimeter on, and that should give me the right size. So we've got 181 millimeters by 61 millimeters. So next, get yourself a cutting mat, and the good thing about this is you've got a grid to help you line things up on. So I'm just going to bring some felt over here. We've got some black felt, lovely material, nice and soft. Now if you remember, that grid was on the other side of the cutting mat. I'm going to place the straight edge of the felt. This is a nice manufactured straight edge. This edge here, this edge has been cut with scissors all the way along here, and it's a bit wavy and wonky. Okay, so we're just going to ignore that for now. Line up this side over here, and you won't be able to see, but you just see where my finger is down here. So we've got this grid. Every one of these big squares, these are 5 centimeters wide. And then we've actually got millimeter spacing on this grid as well if we look really closely. So from that edge there, 61 millimeters is basically where the fingernail of my thumb is sitting. So place that back down. I've got a white pencil here which should show up quite well. You can use a pencil, a normal pencil, but you want to make sure that the tip's not too sharp, because that will actually pull on the fibers and loosen them. So I'm just going to use this blunt white, and the side that I draw on is actually going to be the back. I'm going to double check my measurements also with a ruler, just to make sure I'm exactly the right place. So I'm going to make a little mark there of the size it needs to be. So we're supposed to be 61. I've made a mark at 62 because I want to cut on the left hand side of that mark so it gets really accurate. Then I'm going to move my ruler up, keeping it nice and horizontal with the material. Now I need to make another mark at 62 millimeters. I'm going to go over it a few times like that. So hopefully on the screen you can see that there's a mark here and there's another mark down here. Next, I'm going to just line up my ruler on those marks, just lightly, not pressing too hard. Almost like stroking the felt, holding it on its side, because I don't want to drag it and pull the fibres. And that should give me a nice clear line to follow. So that's the thinner dimensions. That's the 61 mil. Now I need to do the 181 millimeters. I've made it an extra millimeter over because the ruler was at a slight angle when it was measured. So let's put this ruler. So there's 181 millimeters. I'll make myself a little mark. I'll mark there. And the same on this side. I want to kind of hold the felt down while I'm doing this, because if it pulls out of position, it goes off the grid, and then I know it's not square. Again, put my ruler down and try and get this white pencil mark onto it. Okay, so there, now we have our piece marked in. The next thing you'll need is some shears. So shears are different from scissors. They're larger. They've got space for more fingers on this side. They're a bit sharper and they're a lot pointier than the normal school scissors. We only really use these on fabric because paper and card and other materials can actually blunt the blade. So we're going to keep these just for fabric. So you want to get a nice cut on this so you don't have any jagged edges. You want a nice clean straight line. So take your time with this. And remember that I'm supposed to be cutting on the inside of my white line. I want to hold the fabric gently and not tug on it, because if I tug on it, it will change the shape as I cut it out. You can see there I've pretty much gone directly along my white line. It's still there, which means I've cut this just the right size, hopefully. Now I'm not going to move the material. I'm going to move my body to the other side of the table here and just try and get my best, neatest cut. Okay, so we've got our piece of felt. I'll roll this up. Move that out of the way. So now we can do what's called a dry fit, just to check everything is not going to be too large or too small. I'll pop it in there, move it around, push it in the corners, wiggle it around, run your fingers along it, make sure there's no kind of creases. See if you're going to be happy with that. Now I can see there's seems to be creasing up a little bit. You might not see that, but you can see it along the edge. It's not sitting nice and flat. So if you need to adjust this at all, you want to do it before you stick it down. You don't want it to be too big. So if you need to adjust the size, my advice to you is take tiny amounts off at a time. You don't want to take off too much. So with this end here, I wanted just to resize that ever so slightly. What I could do is line my ruler over the top. You see there's a tiny bit of felt sticking out over the edge. Just drag my white over that. Okay, so that shows up just. I'm just going to carefully trim that off. Now we're going to have to be careful here because we don't want to change the shape. It's really nice and square or rectangular. It's got nice square corners on this piece. This is going to be tricky. So I've nicked a little bit off there, not massive, almost so you can't hardly see it. Okay, just pop it back in, do another dry fit. I'm quite happy with that. Okay, so take that back out gently. You don't want to stretch the fabric. And the next thing you need is to get rid of your cutting mat. I'm going to move over to a gluing tray and place our box in the gluing tray. So going to take some PVA glue, an old paintbrush. Sometimes the old ones are good. Make sure you wash them afterwards. You don't want to put too much glue in one place. You want to really get this glue all nicely spread out. So first of all, I'm just going to get that glue in there. Spread it around, but I'm trying not to go too near the edges yet. So I want to get most of the surface of the MDF covered. Okay, and then now I've got most of it done. I just want to get that glue into the edges. So when you do the corners, you don't want to have too much glue on the end of your brush. You can kind of push it into the corners a little bit. Rotate the brush as well, because you'll find glue builds up on the back side of the brush that you're not using. So a good painter will always kind of rotate their brush to spread the glue out evenly. It's a fine line between the right amount of glue and too much, and we'll see shortly if we've got the right amount. We don't want to get too much glue up the side of the box as well. So if you do get lots up there, and if you're messy when you work, and it's fine if you're messy with your work, as long as you're working hard and doing your best. But if you are messy, just get a cloth and wipe up any excess. Now you see the glue now is kind of evenly spread out. There's a few areas. Just might want to kind of stop it from building up. If you get areas where there's too much, the fabric might buckle. Okay, so that brush needs washing afterwards. We'll go back to our felt. It's collecting fluff from the table and things, so just be careful of that. It's black, it really will show up. So this side's got the fluff on it. I'm going to put that down. I can't see my white lines anymore. So when we put this in, I'm just going to drop in. My left hand here is just going to drop in that side. I'm not going to push any more fabric in. I've just literally just dropped that side down. I'm just going to let gravity pull it down to the bottom. And then use my fingers just to push it into the corners first of all and spread it along. And then I'm holding this bit up whilst my other fingers just kind of gently push that into position, spread it around, get it right up to the edges. While the glue's wet, you should be able to kind of manipulate a little bit. Manipulate where the fabric's sitting. And if you didn't pull it too taut, when you get to the other side, and if your measurements were right, you should have just the right amount of felt to stick in there. So then just run your fingers along the edges, press it around gently. You don't want to be forcing it, just kind of easing it into position. So there we go. So that's the felt liner done. It's coming up a little bit at this corner here, so I need something that's got a bit of a point on it, so this ruler might help. Press that bit down. To the other side. Okay, so the felt liner is done. Right, so good luck with your liners, and I hope they come out well.